You're gonna see her on a little green speck, on a little blue ball, in a big black sky, all alone.
Hi, I'm Chef Gary here at Rocky Creek Valley Farm. Today we're going to make homemade bread in the bread machine. And I've developed a universal recipe that works pretty good just about every time. It consists of water, a yeast, and then you have sugar and or honey to make the yeast rise. And then of course some type of flour, a little salt, and an oil and or butter. And this is homemade butter. Doesn't that look good? So we're going to get started on this. The best way to do it, get your container for your bread machine, and this is a 1.5 pound bread machine recipe. So 1 cup of really warm water, a package of yeast, and get the rapid rise yeast. It works a lot better if you can. And then you need something to sweeten that with, so a little teaspoon of sugar. If you're making a sweet bread, you might put 2 teaspoons in there. Honey's great too. You can use whatever you want. Now we'll just let that rise a little bit, and then we're going to add our basic flour mixture, which is 2 cups of white bread flour. And then we need a little bit of salt to go with that, about a teaspoon. If you're making a savory bread and you like it a little salty, add a little bit more. If you're making a sweet bread, you can cut it back a little bit. And then today we're going to use olive oil, and we need 2 good tablespoons of oil in here to make this bread rise right. And you notice I don't measure very much. It's not that critical, so I see people just measuring down to the grain of flour. It's just not that critical. If you work with it and know what you're doing here, which we're going to show you, you're going to be just fine. All right, we have our bread mix in the bread machine now, and now we're going to add the flavoring cup, which is 1 cup of whatever flavor you want that bread to be. Of course, you can add 1 cup of wheat flour for wheat bread, 1 cup of rye flour for rye bread, 1 cup of oat flour, and so on and so forth. We have a lot of great ingredients here in our little sample, so we're just going to dump them all in there today and make a multigrain bread. And one thing to remember, if you're adding a flour rises, so you will only add 1 cup. But if you're adding a grain like the flax seed or the nuts or even the sunflower seeds, those don't rise, so you can add about another extra 1/2 cup of that. So you can get away with 1.5 cups in that situation. Okay, we're going to add this in here. All right, now we're going to put this in the bread machine and get it going. There are a lot of variables when you're making bread. One of them is the altitude. What part of the country do you live in? What's your altitude? Makes a big difference. The humidity on the day you make bread. And another one is what brand of flour are you using? What brand of oil did you use? So you need to just have just a little bit of knowledge about what the bread should look like. And if you look at your bread after the bread machine starts, now see, this has formed a nice ball, and that's what you want, is a nice soft ball of dough. This might be just a little bit on the sticky wet side, but I have a lot of cereal in here, and cereal absorbs a lot of water, so I'm going to leave it just like it is. And this should be a great moist loaf of bread for us. If it's too wet, just add a tablespoon of flour to it. If it's just a little bit too stiff, add about a tablespoon of water and let it knead just a little bit more, and it'll come out just perfect for you. Oh, it smells great in here. What we like to do is throw the bread in the bread machine when we go out to work in the morning, and it takes about 3 hours in this machine, and when we come in for lunch we have hot, fresh, homemade bread. So this is it. I'm actually even going to show you my mistake. The top fell in just a little bit, and that would be because filming this we restarted the bread machine about 7 or 8 times. So the yeast got a little bit too active, but this bread is still going to taste great, and boy is that hot. So it comes right out of there. Now, we'll talk a little bit about slicing, because I see people get a nice loaf of fresh homemade bread and they try to slice it and they butcher it. So here's the thing about slicing. Take your knife, close your eyes, lay your knife down. Where'd your knife go? went at a 45-degree angle. It didn't go over here, it didn't come over here. So when you're slicing, you need to be slicing at a 45-degree angle. That's where your knife's going to go straight. You're going to get a nice straight slice of bread. And one thing I really like to do, like especially for dinner parties, is that's a pretty big slice of bread for a dinner party. So I like to cut the loaves of bread this way and use a good sawing action. And you'll get a nice clean cut. And then once you have that cut, then get your bread over here and you have a nice little slice for dinner. Homemade butter, the only way to go.
And we gotta take good care of our little blue ball, 'cause it's the only home we'll